The timer? Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Planning and Zoning public hearing for Tuesday, September 12th, 2023. If we could do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If our interim secretary could read the public notice.
Notice is hereby given that there will be a public hearing on Tuesday, September 12th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall to consider the following. Number one, application 23-29P, Town of South Windsor. Request for special exception to section 7.18 and site plan of development for the construction of emergency services telecommunication tower on property located at 124 Sullivan Ave, RC zone. Number two, application 23-25P, the Metro Realty Management Corporation, request for a zone change of approximately 4.82 acres from Buckland Gateway Development Zone to the Multifamily Assisted Housing Zone to include a portion of 240 Deming Street, 4.82 acres, and a portion of 440 Buckland Road, 0.36 acres, including conceptual plan in accordance with section 7.22.2.a, continued from August 15th, 2023. Copies of the applications are on file in the office of the town clerk and or the planning department and online at southwindsor-ct.gov. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard and written comments by the public will be received by mail or email. Persons who may require an accommodation can contact staff Monday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., Tuesday to Thursday, 8 to 4:30 p.m., and Friday, 8 to 1 p.m. at 860-644-2511, extension 2329. Bart Pasakonis, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We do have one of our commissioners who is out but expected to be here, Commissioner Wagner. So I am going to seat Commissioner Quarishi for Commissioner Wagner at this time. If anyone has a cell phone, if they could make sure that it's just turned to mute or off, we would appreciate it. This is a, I'll get right into our first public hearing, which is application 23-29P, Town of South Windsor. Do we have someone here to represent the applicant? If they could step forward, introduce yourself, and I'll just remind the public, if anybody chooses to speak during the public hearings, there should be a sign-in paper up there. If you could print your name and address, we would appreciate it, and always introduce yourself to the commission. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman. Hi, fellow commissioners. My name is Walter Summers. I'm fire marshal for the town, and I'd like to thank you for allowing us to propose a communication tower at the Trax facility down on Sullivan Ave. Along with me tonight is Bruce Marcus from Marcus Communications, our telecommunications and emergency radio vendor, if you have any questions that become technical at all. Over the years, the town has invested quite a bit of funds in updating emergency communications through the capital improvement project. The first upgrade was to add a site at the Eli Terry School when it was under construction, and we worked with the Public Building Commission to put up a site there, so that part of the town was covered. A second improvement, the one that went through here also, was the tower at VMP, which is now up and running, and we'd like to report that the communication in that area has improved significantly. We were able to, with our portable radios in the dead center of DST or Broadbridge printing, able to get out and communicate with dispatch, which was never possible before. So we are very happy with the coverage that was improved down in there, and thank you to you for approving that site. As you heard in January from our public safety officials, our final proposal is for down at Trax, as we do have some shortages in the industrial area, down in the Connecticut River Valley, Scannick Meadow Road area and stuff like that. So as we went through the text amendment change with you, we've designed this tower to fit the the approved text amendment that we did back in January. It does conform to the 150-foot height and a 20 by 20 enclosure. If you look on page SP1 of the drawings, all communication equipment for the town will be housed inside the Trax building. There won't be a shelter for town radio equipment, as we have a room within Trax that will do it. On the SP1, you'll see some adjustments were made.
Well, could you say that number again, because I'm not seeing that on my drawing?
Sam P. Paul -1.
Oh, okay, yeah, I got it right here.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, thank you.
So working with design professionals and the police department on what the needs were down there. The first part was to make sure that a van or a little bit bigger delivery truck, because they use the overhead door in the back for deliveries, and also some of the animal control officers use that to bring the animals in. We had to adjust the turning radius there as you come around, and then we increased a little bit of the pavement by the enclosure, so the vans can come in, pull straight ahead, and then back right into the building. So we made those adjustments in the parking lot a little bit. All utilities are going to come from the building. If you can see that black line going out to the shelter is 4 conduits that will do the power and the coax cable from the antennas into the building. What else we have? And we repositioned the dumpster. It's over on the west side there now, because the dumpster is currently, the pad is currently in that area where the tower is going to be. If you go to page C. Charlie, D-Dog 2, you'll see a detail of the enclosures that we are proposing for the garbage bin and the radio tower. The shelter is going to have a 7-foot high fence with double doors, and the slats will be put in, or fabric, whichever you decide, to kind of shade that. And then the dumpster one's going to have the same design, but it's going to be 6 feet. And then if you look at CD-2, you'll see a coverage map showing the improved coverage with the Trax tower and a concept of the lattice tower that we are proposing. Other than that, that is the proposal we have in front of you for the site. I'm working with Peter and design professionals. I think we met the requirements in the text amendment that we agreed to back in January. And I'd be happy, Bruce and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
At this time, we'll turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Leip.
Sorry about that. Thank you. So this is a request for a special exception to Section 7.18 in Site Plan of Development for the construction of a 150-foot emergency service telecommunication tower at 124 Sullivan Ave, which is the Tyler Regional Animal Control Facility in the restricted commercial zone. Proposed height of the tower will be, a lattice design proposed to be 150 feet As we do allow in our regulations, the commission may recall, as Mr. Summers reminded you, there was a text amendment in January where we talked about the lattice design as well as the height being allowed for lattice designs. This is a special exception and subject to all the criteria in section 8.7. I've provided that in your report that I will save time and won't read it in tonight. The site improvements include a 20 by 20 foot area to be enclosed with a 7-foot fence in the rear of the building. Other minor improvements are dumpster relocation, additional pavement in the area of the tower for service vehicles, and some landscaping around the area of being disturbed. There are no regulated wetlands on the site. In accordance with section 7.18.8, the special exception for telecommunication facility, the regulations require that tower construction must commence within 1 year from the date of the approval. There's also an abandonment clause in the zoning regulations that requires removal of the facility within 90 days from the date of abandonment and restoration of the area to its previous appearance. If this application is approved, the planning department has no modifications to request, and there are no engineering comments on this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments from engineering?
No engineering comments.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I will open it up to the public. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak in favor of this application? Please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak against or have questions or concerns? Please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, we'll turn to commissioners. Commissioner Bernstein.
Mr. Fire Marshal, I have a question. This is more out of curiosity.
Sure.
So I think you started your narrative by saying that the reason for this is there's some gaps in the coverage.
Correct.
So what has been the downside of those gaps? What have we missed or?
So the downside is that the interior firefighter, if they get into a situation that's perilous, they have to call a mayday or anything, that portable radio might not make it out of some of the structures down in that area, i.e. Aldi's, deep inside Aldi's, Mobis and stuff like that, or down in the Connecticut River Valley area. You have to get up over that ridge and try and hit Sand Hill Tower when you're down in that area. The fire department does operate on some fire ground frequencies in there, but that is only from the interior unit to a suburban out in the parking lot. So sometimes those will make it out and sometimes they won't. So those are the kind of gaps that we're trying to fill within that area.
Yeah. So did we experience any consequences because of that?
Luckily, not yet.
Okay.
We haven't had an incident where that has occurred.
Well, I think you just made a pretty compelling case for this application. Thank you.
Commissioner Cavagnaro.
I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Viteri.
If, once this is put in place, do you think there'll still be other areas that are dead zones, for want of a better word, or will this pretty much close everything up?
This will pretty much close out. One other area we are looking at is over by PR Smith, and up in that area, there are a couple spots there, but we are working with a plan that's in front of the Siding Council probably to address that at a more reasonable expense to the town. So we have a plan over there. We're kind of working on that one too. But for us, this would be the last construction that we have.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Foley.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Dexter.
No questions.
Commissioner LeBlanc.
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Carey.
No questions.
Commissioner Quarishi.
No questions.
Okay, and I have no questions. Commissioners, is there any reason you can see to keep the public hearing open? Town staff? Applicant, you're all set?
I'm all set. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, then having no further public comment, we will close this public hearing at 7:15 p.m. and it is on our agenda later tonight for action. Okay, which brings us up to our continued public hearing for Metro Realty Management Corporation. Again, we left this public hearing open to resolve some outstanding issues on the public record. So at this time, I'll call upon Metro Realty, who asked us to keep it open, for their input.
Good evening, Attorney Tim Hollister representing the applicant. I just conferred with Attorney Parks. As you may know, he filed one more document yesterday, so at this time I'll just yield the floor to him so he has a full complement of his concerns, and then I'll address them all. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm expecting that's probably the document that's sitting before us.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good evening, John Parks on behalf.
If you could please speak into the microphone so we have an accurate record.
Apologize.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is John Parks, and I'm here on behalf of the neighbors to this project. And excuse me. I received, by going on the website, a copy of Attorney Hollister's September 5th letter, and he addresses most of the issues raised in my August 15th memo. The conservation easement, which was the second one, after I looked at the map, which was hard to figure out from the language in the easement itself. I think he is probably correct on that one. I don't think he's correct on the age restriction, because he splits a hair and says the 0.36 acres is land, it's not a unit. So the restriction doesn't apply to the land, only to units. Well, the units and the land are one, they're both real estate. So yes, it does apply to the land as well as the unit. He supplies a definition for something that's not defined in your regulation, which is the term adjacent. And I also looked at that that definition, and adjacent. One of the synonyms is abutting, and that's how I took it. He's taking it as in the vicinity. I guess it's up to this board to decide what adjacent means in your regulation, but if it means abutting, this application doesn't meet the location requirement. If it means in the vicinity, perhaps it does. It's vague, but I think because of its purpose of zoning, you would take the more restrictive definition, which would be adjacent. So this land, this 0.36 acres is not adjacent to the property it needs to be adjacent to. However, there are three elements in section 7.22.1, and one is the location. I don't think this complies with that requirement, at least the 0.36 acre piece doesn't. The land area clearly doesn't, because the land area is 4 acres. The portion of 440 Buckland Road is only 0.36 acres, and the frontage requirement, which is 7.22.1 C, clearly doesn't comply because the parcel is landlocked. Attorney Hollister posits the notion that consider it all as one piece, and I don't know where that comes from, but you've got to consider the application that's before you. The application that's before you is two parcels. The two parcels stand on their own. There is a letter from Ben Tripp that at some point he wants to reconfigure the property and perhaps make it part, but you have to act on the application as it's before you. There's no there's no conditions allowed to a zone change. And so you can't approve the zone change and hope that Metro follows through on joining it. I think this is a fatal flaw. I think the board would lack the authority to approve this application on the .36 because your authority comes from the statute. The statute's 8.3. 8.3 doesn't give any zoning commissions the authority to conditionally approve a zone change or approve a zone change with conditions. So the application as it was submitted either complies or it doesn't, and the .36 acre landlocked parcel does not comply. I think it also violates the, I use the term double dipping. I still think it is double dipping. And there's no authority in Attorney Hollister's response, which is what I was thinking he would do, to back up his positions. They're just opinions. I know that I know the environment here as far as affordable housing. I get the environment. I think affordable housing is appropriate and important. However, even for that cause, the cause of affordable housing, you still have to comply with your regulation. And this is an application for a change of zone. The .36 acre piece does not comply. You can't approve it, or you could approve it, but it would be flawed if you did. I've submitted, and I've got extra copies here because I wasn't sure if it would be distributed or not. I emailed Attorney Hollister a copy. I'm available for questions as to it. I have some additional materials that I just summed up in there, but I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we'll hear from Attorney Hollister at this time.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Tripp and Mr. Sager from Metro are here with me, and I believe Mr. Daly, our engineer, and Mr. Zingler from Mark of Manchester also either here or will be. I don't know if you know that 84 was a parking lot as we made our way from Hartford. But to finish off the hearing, hopefully, I'd like to address the concerns raised by Attorney Parks in his August 15th package and then his additional remarks filed yesterday, which he sent me a copy. And we, as you know, we provided a written response that was e-filed and posted on September 5th, a week ago. So I believe everyone has had ample time to review that, and I assume you all have a copy of that. So really the focus and the starting point here is what we have referred to as the triangle, which is the piece in the upper right-hand portion if you're looking at Deming Road at the bottom of the map, and the acreage that is proposed for rezoning. And the first issue is that the applicant's plan, conceptual plan, is to do a lot line revision with Berry Patch 2 that would merge the triangle into the larger parcel that's being proposed for the rezoning. And I don't think there's any dispute that the applicant has control of both sides of that triangle, so they have the ability to do that. And so the concern that Attorney Parks raised yesterday is that zone changes cannot be conditional, and he referred back to an early email to staff where the lot line was mentioned as something that would occur in the future. Well, Attorney Parks is correct that you can't have a conditional zone change, but we're not asking for a conditional zone change. We're asking for a straightforward zone change of an assemblage of 3 parcels. And well, first thing I would point out is that your own regulation, quite appropriately, 722.4.b, land area talks about the total area of the parcel to be rezoned shall be a minimum of 4 acres, not the individual components that may make up the land assemblage. And so that it's just completely compliant with your regulations that you look at the total parcel and not the individual parcels. And I think you know that this is just totally routine in land development, that there are sometimes assemblages of individual parcels. And one reason for that is that individual parcels get created for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes you have a subdivision and there's some small piece that doesn't fit the mold and it's left for another day. And so assemblage of individual pieces happens all the time. And so for Attorney Parks to claim that this is a conditional zone change, it's like saying that an applicant who has a purchase and sale agreement is asking for a zone change that's conditioned upon actually going through with the purchase. But, well, yes, but it doesn't matter because the condition is simply the completion of the assemblage of the parcels. Another way to say that is it's a temporary condition which will be resolved. It's not a site-specific restriction that would be imposed permanently as part of the rezoning. That would be conditional zoning, but this is not. Second point, which I think I heard Attorney Parks agree with our response on, is the fact that the 2004 conservation easement from Berry Patch to the South Windsor Land Trust simply does not encumber the triangle. I don't have a slide, but this is the map that I gave you, and the blue is the meets and bounds of the conservation easement, and the green is the triangle. So I think we can put that issue to bed. They're just simply different locations. Third issue is, does the triangle meet the minimum requirements for rezoning to MAHZ? Again, Attorney Parks is sort of trying a divide and conquer type of argument, saying that the triangle is too small and it's not adjacent to commercial property. Well, by itself, the triangle does not, but the proposal, the overall proposal for the rezoning to MAHZ does meet the criteria and meets them perfectly on all of the criteria that are listed in your regulations. Another way to say that is that if Attorney Parks' view prevailed, separate parcels could never be assembled for development. So I think you get the point that in rezoning, it's the proposed parcel, what we will end up with, that counts, along with a demonstration that the applicant has the ability to control both sides of any subparcels that are involved. But there's no issue about that here. Last thing is the age restriction. I guess I thought Attorney Parks would agree with this because my position on this, because I think it's pretty clear, but he claims that since the triangle is presently part of Berry Patch 2, and Berry Patch 2 has an age restriction, the triangle has an age restriction. But the triangle is land that doesn't have apartment building or apartment units on it, and the age restriction only applies to the age of people who actually live in an apartment. So it's just, the best way I can say it is it's apples and oranges. So the age restriction is simply inapplicable to the triangle, and the last way to think about that is if the boundary line is moved, the age restriction compliance at Berry Patch 2 will continue completely unchanged from what it is today. Now, finally, let me mention that my understanding is that your town attorney has reviewed all of this and agreed with our conclusions. Perhaps staff may have her own opinions, but those are our responses to Attorney Parks's assertions. So I guess in closing for the applicant, first I want to thank the commission, good staff, and members of the audience and the citizens of South Windsor. Certainly this has been a thorough hearing. We believe the application meets the criteria for rezoning. Last thing I need to bring up is you mentioned Commissioner Wagner's absence. Obviously, I think you know, Mr. Chairman, that you need to be seating for the vote people who have been here for all the sessions. I think you know that. So just with one commissioner absent, I hope you'll take that into account. Just make.
You're trailing off a little.
I'm sorry. I'm just make sure that when you have to see, you're going to seat for the vote a full complement of people who have been here for all of the sessions, July, August, and September. I think you know that standard procedure.
Okay, and my understanding of that is somebody didn't necessarily have to be here for all the sessions, but if they caught up on the record,
Correct.
if they watched the
Correct.
meeting, or if they're participating electronically.
Correct on all fours. I just didn't want you to inadvertently seat someone who had missed a session and had not caught up. That's all. That's just.
Okay, thank you.
Being a cautious lawyer. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Light.
Thank you. Just two brief things. I did hand out a memo tonight, and that was a reevaluation of the petition that was submitted, the 500-foot petition. The only additional valid signature yielded a .004 addition to that, so it still does not meet the threshold needed to force a supermajority vote. So I just want to put that on the record. And secondly, I did want to just concur with Attorney Hollister. When I received the packet from him that was sent to the commission, I did forward it to our town attorney. I wasn't looking for a legal opinion of it, but I just want to make him aware of the latest with it, based on what's been going on. And he did take a look at it, and he didn't see anything. We talked about the zoning regulations and how they were being applied, and the fact that lot line revision would occur, and he didn't have any specific concerns that he expressed to me at that time. And that's all I have at this point.
Okay, thank you. Were there additional communications received?
You received a couple in the packet that were posted on the website. I do not believe, other than Attorney Parks's communication, we received anything in addition. So you all received Attorney Parks's tonight.
Okay, and
So
we
you should have
received an
everything.
email with those
Yeah, and they're in your package. Yeah.
communications, yes. Okay. Is there any, my question to the commissioners last time was, is there any other reasons to keep the public hearing open? Hearing and seeing none. Town staff? Applicant? Does the intervener have any reason to keep
We
the
don't have
public
an
hearing?
intervener.
Pardon me?
There is no intervener.
Oh, well, my apologies. Okay. So if there's no other input, do the commissioners have any questions about what was presented here tonight? No? Okay. Okay. So as I said, is there any reason to keep the public hearing open?
Bart, in one
Commissioner Carey?
in one of the, Chairman, in one of the letters, there were questions in the letter that we received in the packet. I didn't know if we needed to have them answered or.
Are you speaking of the email that was sent Friday, August 11th?
Yes.
There's certainly, you have an opportunity to ask any questions you want. You don't have to ask them, but if you want information on them, I mean, it's like any other public comment. You can handle it however you'd like.
Would you like to bring forward any of those questions?
Trying to look to see what might have already been answered.
When we have a public hearing, that's the opportunity for the public to come and ask their own
Okay,
questions.
okay.
So it has been provided. I believe a lot of this doesn't necessarily address the 55 units that's currently proposed. Some of it is 72 unit. They were looking, I had concerns about a possible guarantee of the units for the MARC part of the proposal. And the letter had asked if 14 units would be guaranteed. And I believe the applicant had mentioned all along that there were 20 to 25%, depending on the number that it ended up being of the total count. And that number was also the same. And in one of the communications they sent, I believe they said it wouldn't affect more than one unit, the reduction for the MARC part of it. There is one question about the pumping station that I don't know if it's ever been resolved, or maybe my recollection isn't right, but if there is a power outage, what is the ramifications to the pumping station? I mean, how does that affect the overall project? Does water start backing up, or?
For the record, Ben Tripp on behalf of the applicant. The pump station is required to be on a generator.
Pardon me?
The pump station is required to be on a generator, will be on a generator, so if power is lost to the project, there's a portable generator that will provide power to that pump.
Okay, fair enough. I didn't see anything else of the commission's concern regarding.
I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. It's not a portable generator. It's a permanent on-site and location generator that will always be there.
So is it like a gas backup propane?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, one last time, any other concerns, questions, comments?
Well, my only comment is that the questions that have come up and the layout and whatnot is one thing. This approval is based upon zone change, not about the application of a site plan. This is about changing the zone.
Yep.
Okay, so I just want everybody to.
Yep. And a lot of the items that came up during the public hearing are issues that, if approved, would be addressed at the site plan approval in the future. So, commissioners, I'm not seeing any? Okay, so we will close the public hearing at 7:40 p.m. and it is on our agenda for action tonight. So that concludes our public hearings. At this time, I'll open the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning for September 12th, 2023. Our first item is public participation. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on something that is not on our agenda tonight? Please step forward.
if I can be heard. Short. Thank you. My name is Janice Stasinski, and I live at Berry Patch 2.
Okay, does this have to do with the Metro Realty application?
Now, for the application, I thought we were a public hearing, and I'd like to have my say.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, proceed.
Well, I've been at Berry Patch for 18 and a half years, and I was very proud to be there when I first went. And over the years, it has deteriorated because no one cares. I have been for 3 years waiting for someone to fix a leak in my bathroom. 3 years, and now I've got mold. And I don't think that I deserve that or anybody else. Now, I don't believe that the maintenance men have the ability to take care of this. You need a licensed plumber. And I expect to get that rectified because I'm not going to live like this. And the outside is horrendous. The trees have not been trimmed. Their garbage is being thrown in the gully from maintenance and God knows who else, dog poop and everything else, which is only 2 feet away to the dumpster. But nobody follows through with anything. It's like I've earned my money for this unit, this place, to put up another one. And I don't think it's right. These people deserve better. We all do.
Okay. Have you signed in yet?
No.
There should be a sheet right there if you could print your name and.
Not me.
I know, you don't have it. I can tell you that. I have no idea who took it. Yeah, I don't.
Okay, is there anyone else in the public who would like to speak on something that is not on our agenda tonight? Please step forward. There's a button at the bottom if you could push it. Thank you.
Okay, Vicki Marjat. I live at 32 Sealy Drive, and I don't know how this town gets to approve things like changes to the gateway zone without notifying abutters. But it just seems wrong. There have been probably 20 changes to the gateway zone since it was created. At one time, there were no grocery stores allowed, there were no gas stations allowed, there were no drive-throughs allowed. All of these things have crept into really reducing the quality of life. And it just doesn't seem, they created the gateway zone without notifying abutters. It just seems very, very wrong. I know Michelle thinks the town planning is transparent, but if you live here and you have a day job and you have kids and everything else, you don't have time to follow planning and zoning as your #1 criteria, depending on whatever else you volunteer for in town. And it just seems wrong. And it's frustrating. Every time I see the drive-through for Panera, it drives me nuts. I won't go to that Panera. What you do matters and really does impact people's lives, and it's just not an appropriate practice, and I don't know how to fix it. But it's really, really frustrating, and it's frustrating over time, and it does reduce the quality of life for people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did you sign in, please? Is there anyone else who would like to speak on something that is not on our agenda? Please step forward.
Good evening. My name is Mike Werner. I spoke last time. We had this little chat, and I spoke out against this because of the fact that Metro Realty has had a bad...
Excuse me.
Excuse me?
If you're speaking about the application that we've closed the public hearing on,
I'm talking about Metro Realty's lack of... they have begun addressing some of the issues that Berry Patch residents have, but we need to make sure that it keeps on going, and need to ask you, what guarantee do you have that they're going to follow through with everything they promised to do? And I'll ask you, Mr. Chairman, to answer that question.
okay, if you bring forward issues, this isn't a debate or a back and forth exchange. We take the information.
Okay, information.
Okay.
I live in an apartment that has weeds all over my apartment with poison dirt and poison rocks, and a cat who died because of it. Issues. We have stumps that were there. They have been removed. I have to give Mr. Krim credit for that because he did speak to me about that, and I do like him, and I do think that he needs to do the right thing, but we need to keep on going, and I need to find out how we're going to be able to do that. And I understand it's not a debate, but I also think you need to think about these things before you vote on them. Just once. That's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on something that is not on our agenda? Please step forward.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Nevin. I live at Berry Patch. Thank you. And I know this is about the zoning, but I would just like to really enforce the importance of how badly Metro is as property managers. It's like we live in a project, literally. And if they're going to really do anything about it, we haven't seen it. I have just had 3 rabbits, a squirrel, and a couple chipmunks that I've had to bury because of the pesticides that they just sprayed on November 9th, or 4th. It affects our dogs, it affects the human race, actually. They didn't care. I asked Christine why it was this pesticide. She said because Metro won't pay anymore to have a pesticide that isn't harmful to people or pets. Our lawns are terrible. Today, we have pictures. They have just literally destroyed our property. Berry Patch 2 and Berry Patch 1, I don't know where that came from because the United States Post Office does not recognize the difference. It's all one address. I don't know if they pay separate taxes or not, doesn't matter. But the Berry Patch 2, where I live in the bottom, is just totally ignored, literally. So I'm just making a point that I don't see how they would be even allowed to rebuild or build anything in our town, seeing that they don't take care of the properties that they do own. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on something that is not on our agenda tonight? Please step forward. Hearing and seeing none.
I'll make it brief. I just have 3 comments. My name is Jim Byrne. I live at number 3 Berry Patch. And I just kind of titled this The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The good regarding Metro is that Monday they did send a crew around, a few guys, to fill the potholes, of which there are many at Berry Patch. They filled them with asphalt. So, I mean, they didn't do a complete paving, but at least they filled them temporarily. Also, yesterday morning around 8 o'clock, I heard the sound of, after 12 days, of a big mowing machine coming around and a fellow with a weed whacker. I realize we've had a lot of rain, so I can understand why it took 12 days to come and what I call the elephant grass being mowed. Also, there's an area outside my apartment, as well as some other apartments, that are a little tight to get to with a big sit-down mower, and I understand that. But what I have coming, at least to my place, is a fellow with a weed whacker going in there and weed whacking the grass. Now, that seems all well and good. However, a weed whacker does not take away the grass, and it really isn't mowed. We used to have someone with a push mower, which does a great job, which would come into my area right outside my apartment and use the push mower. It only takes a few minutes, but it did a good job. I haven't seen that in a long, long time. And the ugly is, as my neighbor commented, he had a tree cut down, so did I outside my place, and the stumps were there for quite a while. They've come recently to grind the stumps down and perhaps remove them. I really couldn't tell, but that's a great thing. But they left all the wood shavings all over the place and did not clean up after themselves, which they should. So, there are my 3 comments about the good, the bad, and the ugly at Berry Patch. I've been there for 17 years. I like Berry Patch, but the maintenance issue has deteriorated, and I wanted Metro to understand that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on anything that is not on our agenda tonight? Please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, we'll move to our minutes. We had, I believe, 1 set of minutes from August 15th. Did anyone have any corrections, concerns, comments? If not, we can accept these by consensus.
They were good.
Agreed? Okay, thank you. Okay, our next item is new business. Our first item of new business is application 23-29P, which is our Town of South Windsor Communications Tower. Commissioners, and since you weren't here for that, I'm going to leave Commissioner Quarishi seated for that one, okay?
Actually, that's fine with me, but I did listen. I was unable to leave the house, but I was able to listen to both public hearings at home. So including the comment by Attorney Hollister that we want to make sure everybody's been to all the meetings. So yes, I did. I'm up to date on everything.
Okay. I'll leave Commissioner Quarishi for this one. So Commissioner, what is your pleasure with the application? Any questions, comments, discussions, motions?
I'll make a motion to approve application 23-29P with the following conditions. This is the emergency telecommunications tower. Prior to commencement of any site work, a meeting must be held with town staff. No building permit will be issued until the final Mylars have been filed in the town clerk's office. An as-built plan is required prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy per section 9.1.3 of the zoning regs. All plans used in the field by the developer must bear the stamp and authorized signature of the town of South Windsor. This approval does not constitute approval of the sanitary sewer, which can only be granted by Water Pollution Control Authority. No building permits will be issued until the Office of State Traffic Administration certificate has been issued. The building street number must be included on the final plan. Pavement markings must be maintained in good condition throughout the site drives and parking areas. And then finally, all freestanding signs and/or building signs require the issuance of a sign permit before they are erected.
Okay, Commissioners, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll call the motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Okay, our next item is application 23-25P, the Metro Realty Corp. For the zone change for the Buckland Gateway Zone. And I am going to ask all the commissioners, and I will seat you for this one, Steve. So Commissioner Quarishi, you're back on the bench. Thank you. Do all the commissioners feel that they've attended all the hearings, made themselves knowledgeable of the application? If you did miss a hearing and are comfortable deciding the faith of the application? Yes? I am. Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioners, so we're going to go around the table for the seated commissioners for discussion on this application. I'll go to Commissioner Cavagnero first.
Yeah, and I was just reviewing the document. My comments on it, and I guess the criteria that were listed on the report that we have to follow, I think some of the concerns that were brought up that sort of correlate within, I think that's point 3 on there with all the sub-bullet points. I think it could fall, yeah, thank you. I forgot to bring this. Looking at it, I guess, character, surrounding area, property values, those are some of the main criteria that I guess during public hearing we had some people speak against or had concerns about. From my opinion, when it comes to property values and multifamily housing and affordable housing, and again, this is the criteria that we're supposed to be following by. In my opinion, I don't believe that property values will be impacted by this. So I'm not sure that's a criteria I'd be, of course, looking at, but I don't think that's something I'll say, hey, I'm not going to vote for this zone change because of that sole thing. Zone change itself, of course, open to the concept of it. I don't really have any general thoughts on it. I don't have any concerns or questions. I mean, I'm ready to vote on it, but besides that, if there's any other concerns, I'm happy to come back to this, but I'm ready to vote on it, so.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Viteri?
You know, given what Commissioner Foley said before, that all we're voting on tonight is a zone change and not the project itself, and that'll have to come back up to us again and go through all of this again. As far as the zone change itself, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think every question that I've had has been addressed and answered. So I'm perfectly comfortable with ready to vote.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Foley?
Again, this is regarding a zone change, and in my opinion, again, I believe every single person here is in favor of what the affordable housing and with Mark, but again, changing a zone is something that has to be taken extremely seriously. And my opinion on this is that there are other places, and again, nothing against Mark, nothing against affordable housing, but it's changing of a zone, so.
Okay. Commissioner Wagner?
Thank you. I think we heard well-spoken comments on both sides of this issue. Certainly there are a number of people who favored the application, especially people with family members who could benefit from the Mark feature or from the affordable housing. I think some of the issues that were raised, I don't, in the end, after thinking about it and reading up on it and reading all of the materials that were given to us, I really, like with Commissioner Cavagnero, I don't see a large impact on people's property values. I think the impact on traffic, although traffic is definitely a situation there, I think the impact on traffic is either minimal or, and definitely less than other things that might happen on that site. The impact on the schools, I think, is quite tolerable. Similar sites have brought in a very small number of students, and I think we would expect that here. So I think the people who would move in there should be welcome in our neighborhood and in our town. So in all, I don't agree with the issues that have been raised against it, and I plan to support it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dexter.
As Commissioner Foley mentioned, we're voting on a zone change, not the merits of the project, which there are many. But I will have to agree with Commissioner Foley about zone changes, especially in the gateway zone, that people expected certain things to be developed in this zone, and we should stick to it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner LeBlanc.
Yeah, thank you. We heard a lot in the last few meetings, and certainly I looked at both sides of the equation. There's a lot of papers, a lot of letters came in, and I certainly appreciate the input from the public. I look at the Buckland Gateway Zone certainly as a guarded zoning, if you will. I feel that the entrance into South Windsor, that is the one nice entrance I feel that when you enter town that I really don't like to change it. And we've had other proposals come to us in the past few years for pulling storefronts up closer to Buckland Road and whatnot, and I'm certainly against any changes to the Buckland Gateway Zone. Our people on this commission prior to most of us here put a lot of work in that, and I stand to protect it. And anyway, enough of that comment, but I think we're ready for a vote, and thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, as Commissioner Foley said, this request is for a zone change. The town does have a need for affordable housing and supportive housing. This proposal should have a lower traffic impact than the current Gateway Development Zone might bring. Town staff and police have voiced no concerns on the roadway traffic. In fact, everything that they've brought forward says that the current infrastructure is adequate. I do understand that the Deming Street area has been impacted by all the development of the Gateway Development Zone. If approved, this development should not be drawing traffic from other areas, such as retail or office, coming in the same location would bring. If approved, this zone change might add 8 to 10 kids to the school system, which again, over elementary school, middle school, and the high school, it's really a minimal impact. And rising school enrollment is not a valid reason for denying any housing applications that would more than likely be turned over by a judge if litigated. As far as the application, 20 to 25% of it is proposed for supportive housing for those with intellectual disabilities. I think those things are very important. As far as the traffic, there were a few concerns, and I'll address some that are from a letter from a Sealy Drive resident. And part of it was talking, there weren't sidewalks to the grocery store. And this has to do with the parts of doing a zone change. And there are sidewalks to Stop and Shop. It might not be the shortest route, and I myself wouldn't want to be walking to a grocery store and bringing back a lot of groceries, but it is possible if they chose to do that. Another item that was brought up was Berry Patch and the abutting existing multifamily development listed in the regulation. Well, Berry Patch is considered multifamily housing. And then there were other concerns about noise, and the letter had said the noise ordinance is not involved, but the noise ordinance is applicable for any future applications. If approved, I have some design development suggestions that I would hope that you'd consider before bringing back the finished site plan. One is putting trees in locations that minimize blocking the site lighting needed to navigate the area. What's the sense of putting a street light if it's in a canopy of trees? And I'll give you one example. Right at your front entrance, as you come into the center island, you have a light on each end, and you have a tree right next to the light. Both those lights are going to be in the canopy. If you had one tree in the center, it would let the light do their job, and we would still have the beauty of that one tree. Again, if approved, I would like to see as many existing trees as possible saved and identified on the property and topography survey plan. An example is there's a 16-inch blue spruce that's in the 25-foot setback that looks like it could be in an area that is minimally disturbed, probably about 40 feet from the end of a retaining wall. But I would like to see those identified coming forward if approved. I am concerned about the lack of usable open space on the site, and would like to see the lot to the east maintained as a mowed field where kids could play wiffle ball or whatever other outdoor games that they possibly like to do, throw frisbee, do something. One of the issues that we have with kids, if you don't give them something to do, they're going to find something to do. And that's not always a good thing. One of the things I noticed about the site that probably brought a lot of the wildlife to the area were the multiple apple trees that are on the site. And everyone that I heard from liked seeing the wildlife. Well, if you get rid of the apple trees, they're not going to have a reason to come. So I'm hoping the apple trees could possibly be relocated or end up planting new ones in an area where they might be good for drawing some local animals or whatever. Again, this is a zone change, and I'm not conditioning any possible approval on that. But that's all items, order, please, that might be addressed at the site plan stage if approved. Commissioners, is there any other comments, questions, concerns? Commissioner Wagner?
Well, we did today, earlier, have a discussion about the triangle of land, so I think when we do have a motion, we should be clear as to whether or not we're approving the zone change for the triangle. My personal opinion is I was convinced by Attorney Hollister that that's appropriate, but if we approve it with that triangle included and there's litigation, I think a settlement could deal with that rather easily. So my recommendation would be to approve it, including the land as the applicant laid it out.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve application 2325P Metro Realty zone change. The request for a zone change from Buckland Gateway Development Zone to the Multifamily Assisted Housing, MAHZ, to include a portion of 240 Demon Street, 4.82 acres, and a portion of 440 Buckland Road, 0.36 acres, including a conceptual plan in accordance with section 7.22.2.A. Concept plan shows 55 units. The Planning and Zoning Commission finds that the zone change is in conformance with the Town Plan of Conservation and Development and the South Windsor Affordable Housing Plan. Within 90 days, by a zone change map, 1 inch equal 40 feet, with an A2 certification must be filed in the land record showing all boundary lines and the acreage of the land where the zone change was granted. The map shall be drawn in accordance with the rules and regulations of the State Board of Registration for Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors and shall be stamped and signed by a registered land surveyor. The zone change map must be submitted on black and white milers with this approval letter thereon, together with 3 blueprint copies of the zone change.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Questions, comments? Commissioner Wagner?
Yeah, I would just say that the motion includes the triangle, so that's clarified.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners? Hearing not the, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. 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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Roll call, please.
I'll go ahead and do the roll call. Commissioner LeBlanc?
Nay.
Commissioner Dexter?
Nay.
Commissioner Wagner?
Aye.
Commissioner Foley?
Nay.
Commissioner Viteri?
Aye.
Commissioner Cavanero?
Aye.
And Chairman Pasaconis.
Aye. So I believe that's 4 in favor and 3 against. So the motion is passed. Thank you. Okay. If anybody has any discussion, please do it outside. We still have a meeting going here. Thank you. Okay. Our next item on our agenda is bonds. There's one buried under here somewhere.
Yeah, it's an erosion sedimentation bond for the Pride site plan over on Governor's Highway.
Okay, commissioners, focus. Commissioner Viteri, do I see your, oh, Commissioner Foley has his light on. Oh, Commissioner Viteri, go ahead. Make a motion to approve the Inland Wetlands Agency Conservation Commission bond. Or maybe Mr. Cavagnero would like to do it.
Move we approve the Inland Wetland Commission Bond 18-48P, Pride Site Plan, amount 10,000, reduction 10,000, balance 0.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, questions, comments? Michelle, on that particular application, is this the only bond we have with them?
No, we are holding several other bonds, pretty significant site bond and landscaping bond, stormwater bond, as well as a wetlands planting bond. So we still have significant money for that project.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I see we added something, the South Windsor Entertainment TNC as being received. Thank you. Michelle, do we have old business?
Not old business, but I do have two things that I want to make you aware of. We have received an application that's been submitted to the Siting Council for a cell tower at 99 Dart Hill Road. I don't know if anybody remembers, but there was a two-lot subdivision done way back 20-something years ago, never built on. So they're kind of up on top of the hill, and there's a right-of-way with some high tower lines up there as well. So it's about a 165-foot tower being proposed. Neighbors around that area have been notified, and we're starting to get some inquiries. Again, it's a Siting Council application. I just wanted you to be aware of it. If anybody has any interest in seeing, I have a book, 5 inches thick of mapping and sites and things like that that is available in the Planning Department for viewing. The second thing, I do have another rendering of the Shake Shack. They're still trying to come up with their outside rendering. This is a little bit muted than what you saw before. They would like to move forward with it. They are also making another modification to the Shake Shack building. When you look at the front from Evergreen Way, they have to put in an exterior oil tank of a sort for their fryolators. So they're going to kind of be extending the building and actually putting building instead of some kind of fencing or screening to treat that, which is something we look for in the gateway zone, that they actually use building for these kinds of things. So the combination of that along with this mural is what they'd like to complete, and I'm kind of looking for your feedback on whether or not you're going to let the mural go forward. So. I have to say, I showed it around the office, and I got a 50-50 on whether it should go. All different ages.
This is one part of it. There's another part, right? Or is that?
I didn't read the other one.
Okay.
This is what's that right there.
Yeah.
This is what they want to look like.
I have a quick question. Do we have to go with something here, or can it stay white? Because I think it looks great the way it is right now. It's a modern, sleek look. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I think there's some elements that were outside of the building, like some piping and whatnot, that they were trying to kind of hide. I can certainly ask if, going without a mural, if that's your preference. We don't have to have a mural.
I'll give my opinion.
Put it on the record, please.
Hell no.
Am I getting a consensus that we're not really in favor of this particular design?
Just keep it the way it is.
Well, just from a marketing perspective, it does bring bring a focus to their building. You kind of miss it otherwise, unless you're really looking for it.
You are going to have a mural on the back of a Whole Foods, too. If you recall, Whole Foods will have a mural as well,
They will.
coming
Okay.
from the, LA Fitness direction.
I mean, maybe just to kind of appease everybody, maybe tone it down a little bit, but I kind of like the concept.
That's what it looks like now.
Kind of have to picture it.
I like it as long as they maintain it.
Well, it's gray,
Okay.
it's brown. I don't know if they.
Just like the trail, you need to maintain it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, thank you.
If, Michelle, if Whole Foods is going to have a
Might be
mural,
right.
should they be coordinated?
They won't be near each other, so the Whole Foods on the opposite side. So it's going to be on the side of the building that's totally opposite of this building.
Right, but you know how, like,
You'll see it before it goes up.
but like,
Color-wise, you mean?
you know, you kind of want things to flow, right? Like in Evergreen Walk. So if you have a Whole Foods mural that's
Focus,
like
guys,
this,
please.
I don't know. Be nice if they melded with the atmosphere of Evergreen Walk.
Okay.
I think it's kind of fun, but I'm thinking also we have, I mean, the sign regulations obviously don't apply here, but they really are designed to deal with the exterior appearance of the building. So I can understand why maybe some people are unhappy with it. Personally, I think it's kind of fun. I wouldn't mind seeing it driving in.
There you go, Steve.
Your microphone's not on.
I'm seeing 6-4 now. Who likes it, who doesn't? Put your hand up.
It's busy. What are the ramifications if we allow it? I'm just trying to.
You will probably get some feedback, either positive or negative about it.
What if
Put it to vote
we
to townspeople.
we let them do it and it really looks awful? What are our options at that point?
Well, it's a painted thing. It could be taken off, but I just, I don't know if they want to go forward with that kind of question mark. But I can certainly talk to Karen from Charter Realty, who's the one that's putting this forward. She tells me it's muted from the colors here, that these are kind of a little bit brighter than what the colors are. They did mute it from what you saw originally, although you wouldn't really know it from the print we have, so.
If you,
Across the street is where you did let the Goddard School go, so you do have kids kind of in the general area. I mean, it may add a little flavor down in that area. I personally would go for it myself.
There you go.
I think
And I'm
what-
an artist.
I think what Bart is considering is everyone's gonna want a mural who's got a brick wall in there. For example, Old Navy could use a couple of extra decorations, so I think we will probably, this won't be the last. And,
Well, when Nike went in, they originally wanted to do people all over their windows and everything, and we actually approved something, and they actually came in with something less. So I think each tenant kind of has its own idea of what they want down there. But you're right, we may see more murals. We have a muralist in town who just reached out to me through the email wanting to know where we want murals to be painted. So we may see more art show up.
I mean, you take a look at, when you're on Buckland Road and you're going into Evergreen Walk, we have these beautiful signs, right? With the landscaping, stone walls, and kind of a formal, you're going into to be a high-end restaurant and retail. And then you come upon this. And I seriously don't think it belongs. It's just, you say whatever you want, but like I said, we're advertising something like a formal shopping and dining experience down there, and then you get to this and you go, it's not Disneyland, it's not Universal Studios, it's Evergreen Walk. That's just my.
I don't know, my opinion has changed a little bit, not because of the colors. I still think it looks ugly. However, it's their business. If they want to put that up, I have the libertarian sense here of, yeah, put that up. If you want a not so good looking mural, then that's your prerogative. That's my honest opinion. So I'll just leave it there.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate. What if every unit wants to put up a mural, and I'm not going to say any names, murals such as this? Do we then allow that?
We critique it, which we're doing right now.
Critiquing isn't really covered under freedom of speech. If we allow it for one, you're allowing it for all. That's my concern.
Okay. I mean, we're critiquing right now. We're offering constructive criticism and saying, hey, maybe it's a bit too busy. Maybe we want to come back to it, revise I mean, this is.
See, one of the things about like signs, we can dictate the size and shape and everything.
Yeah.
But freedom of speech, we can't tell them what to put on the sign.
I mean, we can recommend. They don't have to follow those recommendations. That's sort of my point here.
Right. Well, I'm just worried about this spiral around the toilet bowl.
Bart, I think just in closing, especially chain stores, they have a mothership who says you must look like this. I don't think we'll see a proliferation of murals, just like Hartford Healthcare wouldn't change their look across from Town Hall here. You want us, this is what we look like. So I really think it's a Shake Shack thing. Maybe it's a Whole Foods thing, but, let it go.
I will say during the approval process, we did know about the murals, so they did let us know. So, as far as everybody wanting to do it, I think, you approve buildings without murals down there, that as they come in, I think, you kind of get to look at them as a case-by-case basis. I think it's an attempt to try to add some more life and activity level to the Evergreen Walk area.
Well, again, for me, it's a maintenance issue. I'm looking at the corner of this Shake Shack, and they're literally, I want to say you're 10 feet off the road, and they're going to salt that circle pretty heavily in the wintertime, and the salt does eat away at that pretty quickly. It's not like a Kynar finish on the siding of the building. This is hand applied, so it'll deteriorate pretty quick. And again, I'm not pleased with some of the maintenance in Evergreen Walk, but that's me. And that could potentially be a contentious issue, but it needs to be maintained if they're going to do it.
For my 2 cents, I'm not crazy about this design by any stretch of imagination, but the way the building looks right now, to me, is not nice at all, and especially because it's what you see. You're seeing the meters in the back up against the blank wall and everything. I would like to see something on there. I'm not sure that this would have been my first choice, but I definitely would like to see something up there other than what it is, because even this is nicer looking than what's currently there.
Yeah, Michelle, is this picture over here, this part of it, accurate? Or did they paint it all white? Pardon me?
This here is the part we're talking about.
Right.
Right, this right here.
Right.
Is that?
See how they have this stuff here? Well, I objected to that. Like, really? I mean, so this is why the idea of the mural was you'd kind of be covering it up with a mural and so they're tasked to come up with some way to screen that. And this is where they want to put a new unit, do a change order now.
Yeah, but, the mural is a Band-Aid. I hate Band-Aids, in all honesty. But
I would be happy to have Karen come in and talk to you at your next meeting if you want to talk to her about it and see if there's any alternatives.
Okay.
That's about what I can offer you.
Along that line, after seeing all that equipment out there, I was wondering, why isn't the Architectural Review Committee commenting on that too, telling us, where can you put all this hardware? It's got to go somewhere, but.
Yeah, I think in defense to the design review, they don't tell us about a lot of this equipment until well into construction. Just to give you an example, the Amazon building, I'm just now finding out that there's rooftop units that we're going to have to see and make sure they're going to be screened. Amazon building's been up for over 2 years. So a lot of these equipment things get decided upon during construction time. I'm not trying to give you an excuse, but it does happen quite frequently that the utilities locations are not always known up front. But in this particular situation, you're right, we should have had a better idea that this was going to occur.
I mean, I think design review can say at least put your utilities here or there or screen it. I mean, I feel like they let us down on this one.
Yeah.
Well, they're purely advisory to us.
Okay,
So-
they should have advised us on that one.
But it's up to us, and, you know, I'm sure a lot of this was on the plans, and we didn't.
Didn't look like that when I looked at the plan. I mean,
I hear you, Steve.
okay. Can I comment on the cell tower thing? I know that it's going to be approved by the siting council. Towns can provide input through the zoning board if we so desire. Are we hearing from residents that they're unhappy about it, and that maybe this board ought to have a advisory hearing on that? Or
I have only heard from one resident. So I don't know if there's a groundswell. You know, the town council could also have a public hearing or public information. I know the mayor and the town manager have been getting the same documents I have. You know, I would imagine if people wanted to, they could ask for some kind of input into it. We've advised them of that. The letter everybody received has, you know, direct contact to the attorney that's facilitating the application. And I advised one gentleman who had very specific questions to put them in writing to the attorney to get a response in writing. So I haven't had a groundswell of people express interest, Steve, but I don't know. It's still pretty new out there.
Okay.
Okay. So where are we at with this mural? How many were in favor of it? You were up?
I'll give her fair warning that we may want it to go back to without it if it doesn't, we don't like it.
Okay, then let's move forward and we'll give it a shot. I hope we don't regret it. Okay, Michelle, do you have anything else?
No, just to remind you that next week will be a meeting, simply Plan of Conservation Development with our consultants. It'll be held down in the Madden Room. We'll keep it to 2 hours, so you're in and out of here, other than going through something an agenda by the end of the week. But it is next Tuesday, 7 o'clock, Madden Room.
Okay. We do have a booth also at the Apple Fest?
At Apple Fest on the 23rd, we'll have a booth with Open Space Task Force, and we'll have information about the Plan of Conservation Development, just planning in general, so yes.
Now, do we have any volunteers to participate in that? Because, pardon me?
You know, we could send out, and maybe if people want to sign up for some time slots or something, we could do that so that we knew the coverage we had.
Okay, because my understanding, we might have some issues staffing it. I think, are you away that weekend? or-
I am available to set it up in the morning.
Okay.
So I'm here for the first part of it.
Is Jeff around that day?
Jeff is away, but, you know, we can see between other staff. We'll see what we can do.
Okay, because I'm also taking care of my aunt that day, who's going to be 99 in October.
Okay.
So I'll be away for at least a couple hours with her that day. So I just want to make sure we have coverage. That's why I'm mentioning it now. Yeah. Okay, then that would be a good time for me to go see my aunt, and then I can come back and help break down later. Okay, so if there's anybody who's willing to even an hour, it would be appreciated, okay? Okay, great. Okay, is there any other business to come before the commission?
No, just to remind you all that you have a training commitment of 4 hours. If you need to find out if you still have more hours you need to do, let me know. We're trying to make sure everybody's compliant by the end of the year, so.
I was actually going to suggest that you just let us all know where we stand, because
Okay, I'll do that. I won't embarrass you by sending it to everybody. I'll send it to you individually.
Yeah.
No, I do have the information. We'll share it with you.
Okay. That being said, if there's no other business, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Move to adjourn.
Quarisha, you're voting on this?
Yes.
All
Yes.
those?
Second.
Do we have a second?
Yes. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Sounds unanimous. Thank you.